Okay, good evening, everybody. You all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, welcome everybody to the school building committee, permanent building committee. We put together agenda. Everybody should have got last week. Just some admin actions. We're going to review some of the previous meeting minutes. There was some lagging behind from July 15th, September 9th, and we're going to review some invoices for September tonight. Then left field, we'll do a quick review of the schedule, the budget, and we're going to look at the preliminary design program. That's the first phase of feasibility study, the contents of that and what we need to submit to MSBA. We'll talk a little bit about the meetings that will be coming up during the feasibility study, and then we'll hand it over to SMMA, who are going to talk a little bit about the education, visioning, and planning. So first,
to start, I move that we approve the July 15th, 2021 minutes as written.
I will second that.
Are there any objections? Hearing none. Motion passes.
thank you.
I move that we approve the September 9th minutes as written.
I will second that as well.
Any objections or corrections or anything? Hearing none. All right, motion passes.
Thank you. We have two invoices for September. The first one is for OPM services for left field for $22,000 for work to date on the feasibility study.
So I move that we approve the invoice number 5 for the sum of $22,000 for the period of September for the feasibility study for left field for the sum of $22,000.
Okay, and I will second that.
Joe, can I ask a question on this? Or Shane, sorry, and this, you're going to probably cover this, I see, in your next agenda items, but just this is about 20% of your fee for feasibility, and the next invoice from SMMA is only about 5%. So I'm just curious on what so if you're going to cover it, then I have no problem approving it, but just curious what's been going on your end and SMMA's for these bills to be coming in right now.
Well, we've been on board for 3 or 4 months before SMMA, so this is our 5th invoice, Bill. But this is all the work we've done with hiring the architect. We've been meeting regularly, weekly now, with the leadership group and SMMA to go through the schedule meetings. We've been coordinating site visits. We've been coordinating getting documents, existing documentation to SMMA. So it's just the day-to-day management of the project. So thus far.
Got it. So this includes like the whole interviewing, like going through SBA and all that. It includes all that, and that's what I was curious on. Okay, I'm fine with it. I was just first time going through this phase of it. So thanks.
So there was a second, Joe.
Any
You want
other
to take a vote?
Seeing no other discussion? Chip,
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Janine? I don't know. I saw Janine's iPhone, so I assume that's her, but maybe not. Any other members of the Permanent Building Committee? All right, it's unanimous.
Thank you. And the second invoice is for SMMA for their work for the month of September, $27,500. We've reviewed this and we recommend approval.
Why can't they just do invoice 1 instead of invoice 55,000, whatever? All right, move that we approve SSMA invoice number 0055863 for the sum of $27,500.
I'm not going to repeat that number, but I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Chip,
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Jason,
yes,
Tom,
Yes.
Janine? She's connecting to audio, so maybe that hasn't connected yet.
Thank you.
All right, Janine? Have you been able to hear? All right, that's unanimous.
Thank you. So tonight we just wanted to talk a little bit about the schedule, some of the milestone dates as we move through the feasibility study. As we discussed before, in the feasibility study, there's three phases, if you like. There's the preliminary design program, preferred schematic report, and then finally the schematic design. At the end of each of these phases, we're required to submit documents to MSBA for their review and approval before moving on to the next phase. So right now we're in the preliminary design program phase, the first phase. We did meet with MSBA. We had a kickoff meeting with them a couple of weeks ago, which is just a standard to go through some of their requirements and their regulations before we get going. So there was a number of people from the town and the school district, left field, and SMMA on that meeting with MSBA a couple of weeks ago. The next task is to start evaluating the existing conditions. SMMA have already been up to Wakefield. They've met Tim O'Brien, the facilities director, to collect some existing documents, drawings, and stuff like that to start copying that and get that together for the PDP. They're also sending a team up tomorrow morning to start the physical surveys and examination of the building. We'll move right into educational visioning and programming. SMMA will talk a little bit more about that tonight, but we've started to look at some schedules for that. We got to plug some dates in, and that process has started. We'll also put together an initial space summary. That's the individual spaces in the new school, how big the classrooms will be, science rooms, auditorium, gym, cafeteria, and the like. So we'll get going with that shortly too. We'll start looking at site development requirements. I think the geotech engineer is also going up tomorrow actually to start looking at the site surrounding the high school, and they'll start to put some documentation together for that. And then finally, sometime in November, maybe even sooner, but certainly after we've looked at the education visioning and program, we'll start to look at some alternate designs. We did look at the three at the last meeting: the home renewed, the woven campus, and the model of education. So we'll build on those and present some new ones as we move forward into October, November. And then our first submission to MSBA will be January 5th, and that's when we'll submit the PDP to MSBA for their review. It takes them about 3 weeks to review that, but we'll continue right into preferred schematic report while they're doing their review. So through January, February, we'll do the preferred schematic report. I won't get into that tonight, but overall, we're going to submit that March 3rd, which is a deadline date for MSBA. That's the latest date upon we can submit the PSR if we want to go to the MSBA board meeting on April 27, 2022. Following that meeting with the MSBA board of directors, we'll move straight into schematic design. We'll work through that for a number of months through the spring and the summer, and we'll submit the schematic design to MSBA on September 1st. Again, that's a deadline date if we want to make the MSBA board meeting on October 26, 2022. So that's sort of our milestone schedule. For now, we'll continue to review and update that as we move along. But the three submissions to MSBA were there. Just for information, the MSBA board only meets twice or every 2 months, so they meet 6 times a year. And so that's why it's important that we hit those deadlines and then MSBA board meeting dates, because if we miss one of those, you have to shift everything 2 months. So we'll continue to monitor that and make sure we're on top of this schedule. Any questions on that?
Joe,
Yes,
is this where you want to talk about signing up to committees?
not yet.
I've got that later on.
Later on.
Okay, All right,
And then just, this is a graphic of that schedule, so you can see the kind of workflow. We're somewhere around here, the start of October, bringing us right out to September, October of next year for the schematic presentation to the MSBA board.
And Shane, this is just one question. Is this timeline staying pretty close so far? I know we're still really early in the process with, what was laid out when we, last went through all this and had that, projected end date of the project, or have we already fallen behind on anything?
No, we're right where we thought we'd be, John. We reviewed this schedule with SMMA while they were putting together the proposal. We both think it's achievable. We're right where we think we should be now. So yeah, we'll certainly keep you updated, but we're on schedule right now.
Great, thanks.
Our feasibility budget. So MSBA has standard cost codes and cost categories. In the feasibility, there's just 4 of them. So this is sort of a standard budget template for MSBA. You got the OPM feasibility schematic design, the architect and engineers feasibility schematic design, environmental and site, which is a lot of the architect and their consultants' work. And then you've got another category, which is really just like a contingency for miscellaneous items. So the original budget was $2 million. It was approved by the town some time ago, I think maybe this time last year. That we're working to, that's been submitted and approved by MSBA. It's in their ProPay system. ProPay is the system that MSBA used to process invoices and reimburse school districts. So we're working with MSBA on that. Last month, if you recall, we had a budget revision request. Anytime we change any of these approved amounts in the line items, we have to submit a budget revision request. We did that last month based on the actual OPM and designer contracts that's been processed and submitted to MSBA. So our revised total budget is in this column. We're still tracking that $2 million, but our other category is significantly more than what we started with. So that could be used for unforeseens or miscellaneous stuff as we move forward. We show what's been committed. The 3 line items there are committed to the OPM and the designer. So we have just over 1.55 million committed at this point of the 2 million budget. Show the percentage committed to date, the actual spent to date. That's the invoices that we've approved thus far. So we'll always lag 1 month behind on that based on the invoices that were approved tonight. I'll update this and present again next month. And then we just show at the end of this the balance to spend. So this is sort of the standard one that we'll continue to present and update the committee on where we are with the feasibility costs and budget. Then we just track any transfers and changes down here, which is at BRR. Any questions on that?
Okay.
Thank you. And just then we, again, we keep talking about this preliminary design program, the first submission, the first phase of the feasibility study. So just wanted to run through sort of what is in the PDP and what we're going to submit to MSBA. On the right-hand side here, on the MSBA's website, there is a document that you can go to that details everything. I'm just going to run through sort of the table of contents. When we put this document together, it could be a 150 or 200 page document. So it's a significant submission, but all the detail is on the MSBA website. I got the web address right there, and you can certainly go and look for more detail. But it's broken down into the introduction, which is just an executive summary of what we did during the phase. Talk about the statement of interest that was submitted by the school district some time ago. We just revisit that. The design enrollment is 1,000 students, which was approved by MSBA in the town. We'll talk a little bit about the budget, what other projects are ongoing in town, the public safety. I think there's a DPW project, so just what other projects are going on and how this project is going to be funded. And also we'll present the project schedule, which I just showed tonight. The next section is the educational program. This is the visioning and programming we keep referring to. This is a document that will actually be produced by the school district. We've already started talking to Doug Lyons and Amy McLeod, the principal at the high school, about this. We're working through this with them, and that'll be done in parallel with the visioning that will be happening in the next 4 or 6 weeks. It'll include the educational plan, the class size policies, school schedule, teaching methodologies and structure, how the different subjects and disciplines are taught, teacher planning and room assignments. Some schools, teachers have their own rooms. Some schools, teachers don't have an allocated room. So we'll talk a little bit about that. How the lunch program is done, technology, policies and requirements, whether it's the school provides Chromebooks, laptops, or if it's a bring your own device, functional spatial relationships. Math and science is often adjacent to each other. English and world languages, so that sort of thing. And then finally, the security and visual access to the buildings and how that's dealt with throughout the district. So that'll be the educational program section. Next section is the initial space summary. This is where we'll look at the existing school, the size of the classrooms, the gym, the cafeteria. We'll also look at what is required now. What you would like to do now, I might say, and then we'll also look at what MSBA says under their guidelines. So what you have now, what you would like in the future, and what MSBA guidelines may all be different. But we'll look at all three of those categories, and then we have to comment and do a narrative on the variances between those as part of this space summary. It's just a draft at this point in the PDP, but eventually this will lead to an agreement on how big the school will be. That will happen in the PSR, but this is the preliminary space summary in the PDP. And that's a standard MSBA template. If you go to that website, you'll see that template that we'll be using to calculate the space summary for the school. Existing conditions, as I said, SMMA have started that process. They have a team going up tomorrow. We'll just put together all the documents, the legal title to the property. MSBA require that the school or the town own the property. That's not a problem here. Talk about any development restrictions. I'm not sure there is any. Historic registrations, 1960s building, I think, and the additions in 72. I don't think there's any historic significance to the building, or certainly not on any historic register. We'll look at the site, the civil utilities, the soils, the geotech, environmental, any ecological issues up there, and also the physical building, the code, accessibility into the building, any hazardous materials, the structure, the exteriors, the systems, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, etc. Site development requirements is the fifth section. Again, we'll look at the site, access in and out of the site, including for emergency vehicles. We'll look at parking and paving, how many parking spaces there are, how's that's allocated to staff, facilities, students. We look at the utilities, if there's any easements on the site that might restrict some development. And finally, we'll look at any zoning or permitting requirements. Almost there. The last significant section of the PDP is the preliminary evaluation of alternatives. So we've looked at a couple of very conceptual stuff already. We'll continue to look at those as we go through the education visioning and programming. We're required to look at other space in other schools. I don't think there's any other space in the Wakefield schools to accommodate the students. Any tuition agreements with the adjacent districts, either they sending students to Wakefield or Wakefield sending students out of district. The possibility of renting or acquiring any other buildings. Not sure there's any for this project. And then and these items here then are sort of, where we get into the options that we've talked about. MSBA require us to look at a code upgrade option. That would be if we just took the existing building and we upgraded it to existing code today. And probably wouldn't meet the education visioning and programming, but we're required to do that for MSBA. We look at some renovation addition options. We look at some new construction options. We'll start looking at the site. We'll look how the building will lay out the site with all the other site amenities. start looking at some cost analysis, very preliminary cost analysis. And then at the end of the PDP, we're required to recommend a minimum of 3 options for further evaluation in the PSR. So if we have 6 or 7 options in the PDP that we look at, we recommend further evaluation of a minimum of 3 of those going into PSR, and that's submitted to MSBA. Finally, there's a standard certification that MSBA requires to sign off on before we submit the PDP. And then there's just the appendix, which includes, any survey documents and the like. So it's a significant document, lots of information there, really not making any decisions. It's more for information purposes at this point. But we will start to look at those different options, the addition, renovation, new construction. I did mean to send out something today. I'll send it out to folks tomorrow, just to give you an idea of how we do evaluate those different options during the PDP stage. But that's our first submission to MSBA, the PDP.
Are there any questions?
A lot of information.
Yeah, we'll quiz you on it later. All right. Next is the focus groups. And
Sure, yeah. So just first,
before Shane starts on that, for the members of the school building committee and the permanent building committee, this is where if you want to have a voice, if you want to have a voice in what the high school is going to look like, what it's going to, which some of the different options that we have, this is where we need your assistance. These focus groups are extremely important, and we need to have people in them to get some various different opinions on that. So, I mean, the reason that you joined, hopefully for the school building committees to have a voice in this project, this is your voice, these focus groups. Go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, so I'll jump down to this focus group. So I'd sent out an email to the entire permanent building committee and school building committee a week or so ago, just asking for people to volunteer for these groups. There was a small explanation of what we are. These are the initial focus groups we would like to establish. They're by no means the only ones. We may establish more as we move forward, but initially we'd like to establish an education planning focus group that will probably get together pretty soon as we go through the visioning and education planning. The site design, not an immediate need for that. Certainly as we get to the end of PDP and into PSR, we'll meet with those people. Exterior interior design, again, probably not an immediate need for that until the PSR, the schematic phase. The MEP systems and sustainable design, we'll probably start to look at certainly the sustainable goals and objectives for the project during the PDP. We probably won't get into the actual systems until later on in the PSR, the schematic. So those are the 4 focus groups we'd like to put together. Some people have responded, but certainly if there's anybody else that hasn't responded and you'd like to join one of these groups, please let us know, and we'll be putting them together in the next couple of weeks.
I think it was also pointed out that the educational planning focus group is essentially reserved for teachers, administrators, because it's really honing in on, curriculum and educational issues. So I think that focus group is somewhat limited in the participants. I think it's the other 3 are where we really need your involvement.
And Joe, I would just add that the involvement is just not singular. You can be on all 3. If you want input on the entire school design, site, exterior, interior, MEPs, you're not restricted to be on one group and struggle to figure out which one to be on. You can be on all, and also, they're all public meetings, so you can listen into any one of them. So become involved. This is what everybody signed up to do.
I would suggest, Shane, that you send out an email tomorrow to
Yep.
all members of the permanent school building committee once again, to get to see what, which ones they want to sign up for, one or all three or whatever. Okay.
Sure. Yep, absolutely.
Anybody have any questions on these focus groups?
I have a question on the top set of meetings, not the permanent building. Those are just permanent building, school building committee. Those aren't public meetings or those aren't focus groups, I mean, or.
So yeah, we kind of jumped down. So we've started to try and put together a schedule of permanent / school building committee meetings. It's a large group. So we want people to be able to get those dates on their calendars. So I think that the next meeting, we're not going to meet for 3 weeks after this on the 28th of October. The permanent building committee is meeting on November 4th for the public safety building. So we're not sure whether there'll be a school component to that meeting as well. After that, November 18th, December 2nd, December 16th. So we want to try and just project out a couple of months, Philip, so folks can get an idea of when we're going to meet. But certainly when we get up and running, it's probably going to be every other Thursday that the school building committee will meet. So I'll publish these so folks have an idea of what the commitment is.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding the focus groups? So Shane will send out another email for you to sign up for these focus groups. As I said, this is the way to get seriously involved in the high school project.
And just some other meetings, and Joe, the education visioning workshops, we're going to schedule those for the next 4 to 6 weeks. That'll be a large group with certainly building committee, school department, public participation in that. So that'll be a large group workshop that we're just working through how we're going to format that. And we'll publish those dates as soon as we have them. And then at the bottom here, we'll also be doing a series of public forums again. Certainly we'll have another one sometime during the PDP phase and before we submit that to MSBA. So look out for those dates. I think John might have a question.
Yes, Shane, if you could let us know, what do you see as the approximate sort of time commitment for each of the focus groups, just as folks are thinking about raising their hands for those?
It's going to vary, but depending on which one, John, probably every other week, maybe. I know, Lorraine, if you have a better idea of how often we'll meet. As I said, there's an immediate need, I think, for the educational planning focus group, not so much the site design or the exterior interior. And probably, we want to start talking about sustainable design now as well. So it'll vary depending on which group. But
yeah, probably, I think that's right, Shane. In the PDP, it'll be less work, probably, 2 meetings, 2 hours for each meeting. Once we get into the PSR, it'll probably be 3 meetings, 3 2-hour meetings at least. And the goal of the focus groups is to really hone in on the skill sets and the interests for the parties that really affect those. So, we want to reach outside the permanent building committee. We want to have first responders at the site design. We want to make sure we involve police and fire and security aspects. But the focus group bring everything back to the full building committee. The focus group do not make any decisions. They make recommendations. So I just want to make sure that's clear to everybody as well. So the full building committee will get to view everything.
Lorraine, that was a question I had.
Sure.
It had to do with the, like the DPW, and like you say, also the first responders to get involved in these focus groups. That's, going beyond, so shall we say, the school building committee and the permanent building committee.
Yeah, we would like to reach beyond the committees, the 2 committees, and really involve some town members who are going to end up being responsible for maintaining, responding, servicing these buildings. So we found in the past that it's, gain a lot more support if we can ask people for their opinions early and often, and make sure we take into consideration what their needs and goals are.
All right, Joe Conway's on this. Please take note, Joe. Either you or obviously a designee for these, obviously the MEP and the HVAC and some of the other aspects of, I think that'd be important for the town, as well as the police and fire to get involved in these things as well. Okay.
Thank you. So that's all I had for tonight, Joe.
All right. Lorraine, do you have anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to give the committee an update. Shane sort of covered a lot of it, but just to let you know, as Shane mentioned, we're starting our existing conditions. We've picked up about 300 drawings from Tim, who was able to find a lot of old data on the high school. So we're scanning those documents. We're going to give you back the originals as well as an electronic copy for your use in the future. They're critical to identifying, the existing building and square footage comparisons that we're going to need to do. So our team starts to go out there tomorrow, and then we're out there again with a group of our architects and engineers walking together with Tim and David from the high school on the 15th. Just to let everybody know, we are flying another drone over the high school on the weekend of the 16th to 17th. We don't know which day yet. We want to get some more data. We use the drone as well to help look at the roofs a little bit more and get some more photography out there. So that's something that's very helpful for us and new technologies as we move forward. As Shane mentioned, the visioning workshops are going to get scheduled soon. So we're planning 4 2-hour workshops. It'll be a group of about 50 people, but it's obviously going to be open to the public, so it could be more, but we're going to try and make sure we have a good representation both from the school, across the community, and students. And this is going to be a hybrid or maybe all virtual at this point meeting. We'll have 2, we'll like to plan for 2 in late October and 2 in early November, just to give people a sense of that. And this is really blue sky thinking, outside the box. Where's education going? How is educational delivery going? How has COVID changed the way we teach? What things have worked well for us? What things have not? What might continue moving forward? Or what we might need to provide to help it be improved moving forward. So there's no limits on our visioning. We set no parameters, no controls. It's really, what could we do if we had unlimited resources and unlimited square footage, and then we'll start to hone you back in. But it's really important to get those ideas out first. We are going to start off our educational programming the week of the 25th at the high school. That's going to be held across 3 days. Phil Poinelli, our educational planner who's on tonight, is going to be meeting, basically camped out at the high school, and working with Amy. We're going to be bringing in every department to sit and talk through the specifics of each department. What are the department's needs? What do they see going forward in the future? And then Phil will take that and digest it. And I say this in the sense that we don't want people to be inhibited by what they tell us, but we've also been through this a lot, and we understand there are limitations on budget and costs and overall costs and square footage. But it's important for us to hear what works well, what doesn't work, what you would be doing if you could, and how can a renovated or a new building accommodate those needs. So there'll be a significant number of meeting minutes to get through. They'll be sent out to everybody to read through. But there's a lot that's going to start happening in the next 3 weeks. A lot of meetings, a lot of data collected. We're in what we call intel gathering mode at the moment. It's all about getting everything we can out of you. So we're just going to be the sponge and take in everything, absolutely everything we can, before we start putting pen to paper to develop anything. So that's sort of our team's goals over the next month, Joe, and you probably get to know us all a lot better out at the high school.
Okay, is there anybody have any questions?
I have one, Joe, Tom Stapleton here. Let me see. So Lorraine and Shane, the focus groups, what I'm interested obviously right now, will there be a breakdown of what item it is for that focus group? Like I had different examples of what it was. Will there be a breakdown that explains what that part is?
So I did send out an explanation of what each focus group covers. Shane, I think you issued that. Is that what you're asking, Tom?
Yes. Yeah.
There was when the email went out, there was a description of what each of the focus groups were involved in doing.
So I'll send that in the morning again, Tom, and
Send it out
that
again,
description will be there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Anything else, Shane?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. So that'll end.
I have one question, Joe, if I may.
Yeah, Chip, go ahead.
When we start doing reach outs and how are we publicizing the meetings? Is our website up and running at this point? what are we doing to get the reach out to where you want it, Lorraine?
So I'll let Shane, the website
Yeah.
is up and running and we are going to be posting all the meetings on the website. Shane, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I actually had a meeting with our web designer today and becoming a little bit of an expert in web design. So I started putting up those meetings that we know about, Chip. We'll have those up there and we'll reach out to Jennifer at the town. I don't remember her last name, the PR person. See, can we get them on the town website? But certainly they'll be up on that and on the school website also. So we'll make sure that we're covered there. We'll see if Doug can also include them in any of his weekly or monthly newsletters, so that every parent who gets a newsletter from the school will be informed about the upcoming meetings.
And possibly Tom might even be able to answer these things. I don't know if WCAT can help, or Wakefield Observer, or the Item, you know, without paying for advertising, but have some sort of contact in those spots to make sure, you know, we get our notifications in the weekly meetings, at the Item, all those type of things. Tom has a little bit of knowledge on WCAT, but
I can help you out with that.
Thank you.
I just have one more question, and I'm going to backtrack a little bit. 'Cause I'm not really involved in the finances, but on tonight's invoices that you're drawing off a $2 million kitty there. What happens if you run out of those $2 million? What do you do to back that up again?
Well, let's say this, we won't.
Yeah, we, you know, there was some significant savings in the OPM of the designer contract. So we, you know, that other category for unforeseens and expenses that we don't anticipate is much more healthy now than it was, you know, when the $2 million budget was established. So we don't foresee that we'll exceed that.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else from the school building committee? All right,
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
good night.
Thank you.
Shane?
Yep.
I've lost my screen entirely. All I've got is audio.
we can still see
Okay,
you, Joe.
we can see you, Joe.
Yeah, I know. But I can't see anybody
Okay.
or the screen, anything. So I think I'm going to click out and rejoin. So give me a minute or something, okay?
Okay, yep.
Hopefully he's not the only host.
Yeah, Shane's the host.
Okay. Oh, you heard me.
You can still hear me, but I can't see anything.
We can see you. Yeah, you might just want to check your plug on your monitor, Joe. I don't know.
It's plugged in, it's working.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea. I'm gonna try and read.
You'll be buying a new monitor
Hello,
tomorrow, Joe.
you're back.
We're back.
Oh my, I love technology. Okay. Off to the public safety building.
All right. Can I just take a moment? I got to run and do something. I'll be right back.
Hey, wait a minute. That was my delay. Okay. All right.
So there is comedy here too, huh?
Oh, yeah.
We try to keep our meetings.
My wife had a lasagna in the oven and she just told me to take it out that she's stuck in traffic.
Oh, okay.
I don't want the house to burn
All
down.
right.
It's called real life.
We know where your priorities are. All right. So the public safety portion of the meeting.
Okay. So public safety, the agenda tonight, we got some meeting minutes to review, some invoices. We're going to talk a little bit about the design and bid schedule, the project budget. We'll talk about the trade contractor pre-qualification. Bond are going to go through what a GMP, guaranteed maximum price, consists of, and then HKT are going to give us a quick design update. So the first item is the approval of the September 9th meeting minutes.
I move that we approve the September 9th meeting minutes as written.
Jason,
Jason had to take something out of the oven.
Jason took some out of the oven too.
I'll second that, guys.
All right, thanks, Tim. All right, any questions? Any discussion? Seeing none, any objections? Minutes are approved.
Thank you. Second item tonight is the approval of invoices. The first invoice is for left field, invoice number 11 for $10,000.
I move that we approve invoice number 11 for September 1st through September 30th services for left field for $10,000.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Hearing none.
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Janine.
Yes.
So it's unanimous.
Thank you. The second invoice is for HKT, the amount of $54,180.02. This is for their construction documents.
Okay.
Any
Everybody
questions?
hold on to your hat. I move that we approve HKT's invoice number 000009-022023 for the sum of $54,180.02.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Chip,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Janine.
Yes.
Thank you. The next invoice is for bond building. It's pre-construction invoice number 4, in the amount of $21,550.11.
So where is that number?
It's right here, Chip, current payment due.
Under current payment due number 8,
21, okay, not the 31, because that's,
21,
okay,
21,550.11.
all right. I move that we approve the bond invoice dated 9/30/2021 for the sum of $21,550.11.
There's a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. Chip,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Jason, Tom.
Yes.
Jason's yes.
Thank you, Jason. Janine,
Yes.
it's unanimous.
And then we have a couple of bills from the Wakefield Daily Item for the advertisements for the trade contract qualifications. The first one is in the amount of $380.
I move that we approve the Wakefield item bill dated 8/31/2021 for the sum of $380.
I hear a second.
I'll second.
Shane, didn't we approve an item bill already?
A few.
We did last meeting, we approved a couple for the designers for the high school.
That was for the high school, not for this.
No,
Correct.
these are, we have to advertise the local paper.
No,
for the-
I know. I just remember approving an item bill. I
Yep.
thought we don't want to give them too much.
No.
All right.
I can also
Any
tell
other-
you, Joe, that not one trade contractor looked at the Wakefield daily item to see if there was any.
No, it's required by statute,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I know. It's probably a lobby of the local newspapers or something, but anyway. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Chip,
Yes.
John?
Yep.
Phil,
Yep.
Mark,
Yep.
Tim,
Yes.
Jason,
Yep.
Tom,
Yes.
Janine,
Yes.
unanimous.
And then we had a second one for $304.
How come there were two?
Yeah,
You have to
I'm not-
advertise them 2 weeks in a row.
Is that
I'm not sure. I think it might be, one was for the hard copy and one was for the electronic. I can find out if you want.
All right. Well, just check out on it. Make sure. All right.
Move that we approve the Wakefield daily item invoice dated on 9/10 for $304.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Chip,
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Janine,
Yes.
unanimous.
Thank you.
Hey,
So next-
Shane.
Yep.
Shane, can I ask a quick question or a favor?
Sure, yeah.
Can we get a summary of the budget every time we go into paying bills? Of
Yeah,
what these line items are being put against, what we have left in the budget and what it is to complete. It can be as
Yeah,
simple as that, but before we start approving them, so that if we're getting close to the end or we're getting close to 100% or whatever, we can ask questions about it as compared to after.
Sure, yeah, I do have the budget, or do you want something different to this, Chip?
I would just say if we're paying 4 bills, just pull the 4 line items
Yep.
out and have it at the beginning.
Yep.
To say, here's the bills we're paying in these line items and here's where we're at.
Okay.
That would be great. That would be at least helpful to me. Thank you.
Sure. So just the, excuse me, the design and bid schedule. So we're wrapping up, Janet and her team are wrapping up the 100% construction documents, the bid documents. They're due to go to the printers tomorrow. The printers review those and we'll upload them to their website for bidders to request copies. Most of them request electronic copies nowadays. Those bidders will be able to request copies beginning on October 13th. So we're at the end of our 100% construction document phase. Design is complete, and those documents are going to go to the printers tomorrow for bidders to pick up next week. The pre-qualification of trade contractors, we did go through those. I'll talk a little bit more about those in a moment, but we're complete with that now. I have the list I'll show you in a moment, but we're ready to notify them after tonight's meeting that they can pick the documents up and start the bidding process next week. And as I said, the bids will be available to bidders on October 13th. They got 3 weeks to bid. These are trade contractors, and maybe Dave can talk a little bit about the non-trade contractors, but the trade contract bids will be due back on November 3rd. We'll quickly turn those around to review on November 4th. At the next building committee meeting, we will have a good idea of where we are budget-wise with the trade contract subcontractors, and we'll be ready to bring that to town meeting on November 6th. If we're approved on November 6th, we would expect to come back to the building committee a couple of weeks later for a formal approval of a GMP for bond to release all those subcontractors to get the process of the submittals and review process going. So we've made that date. I know Janet has been sending me emails, calling me. They've been working hard, and we'll get those to the bidder tomorrow, and we'll be able to bid on Wednesday the 13th. Just as well on that, I did coordinate with the deputy chief. We're going to have a walkthrough for the subcontractors on October 20th. We feel that we should, for this building, just the nature of it, that we should open it up and allow subcontractors to come and take a look at the building because of the logistics, the phasing, the occupied building. So we're going to have a walkthrough with subcontractors on October 20th as part of the bidding process, so they can see the building before they submit their bids. So that's the schedule. Fingers crossed that November 3rd, that we get some competitive bids with some good numbers. It's the project budget. So I'll draw this up a bit. So it's a little bit hard. Apologies. So this is the project budget we've been working to. This was the original project budget. In this column, the 9.6 million. We've had a couple of transfers as we've gone through the process. So we were at 9.6 million. I've added a column in here just to show what we anticipate the revised budget is going to be, and what we think we'll be going to town meeting with on November 6th. What I've done is I've plugged in Bond's last estimate number, which was 9.165, including a pre-construction fee. So that's what bumped it up. We talked a little bit about the overages and the reasons for that at previous meetings, but I've plugged that in. And then down under the construction contingency, we were carrying a 9% construction contingency originally. I don't recommend that we continue to carry that dollar amount. I think it would be appropriate to prorate the 9% with the current construction estimate. So we increased that dollar amount for the construction contingency to about 840,000. Given what we've seen and what we know after walking the building numerous times, had design meetings, working group meetings, I think a 9% construction contingency is absolutely necessary for this project. So that will bump our overall project budget up to about 12.15 million. That's what we expect. The number will be somewhere in and around that when we go to town meeting. We'll have the hard bids on November 4th. So hopefully that construction number will come down a little bit. But just wanted to sort of let people know what the overall number is right now, based on the latest cost estimates that we're up around 12.15 million overall cost, which is about 2.5 million more that we'll be requesting at a town meeting.
What's the game plan to get ready for town meeting? Like, who's going to be presenting? What are we presenting? Do we have support from town council, school committee that are going to stand up? Like, I feel we're going to be getting these numbers last minute, which we know, but were we prepared for the town meeting to ask for $2.5 million?
What do you mean, are we prepared? We're going to be asking for it. We've talked to Steve.
But how is it going to be presented, I guess? This message has to...
I was hoping you'd do it, but I guess I have to. Well, yeah, I mean, we're just going, I requested information from Bond, and from Lynn gave me some more information on what the real cost how those costs have increased due to the pandemic. You know, where we were pre-pandemic and where we are as a result of the pandemic, and the costs that have gone up, like some of them going up 30%. I have a whole page full of information regarding the costs that have escalated. And Steve is going to indicate that essentially, because we're bonding this, the extra 2.5 million is you know, because it's being bonded over a period of time, is not a lot of money. I think he was, you know, like 75,000, 80,000, something like that a year. So, I mean, it's,
Okay,
we talked to Steve, we worked it all out. We haven't presented it obviously to town council or to the FinCom yet, because FinCom hasn't met. And when the FinCom meets, I'm gonna give them essentially the 2.5 increase and
Yeah.
hopefully indicate that it's gonna be less than that once we get their bids in, but we won't get our bids in until the 3rd.
Joe, can
but
you
2
share?
point, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead,
Go
Phil.
ahead, Phil.
I was
Go
just
ahead,
gonna say,
Phil.
but 2.5 is what you're gonna tell Finn, like, that's the number we're going with.
That's
with
the number we're going with right now, and as I indicated, I hope I hope and pray it's gonna be lower.
Okay, thanks, Joe. That's awesome. I just was
But
wondering.
I think,
I was-
Phil,
yeah.
to Phil's point, Joe, could you share the memos that you have from Bond and from Lynn in regard to the uptick?
Sure.
I think that'd be real helpful for the committee to see.
Okay. That's if I can find them in my office. No.
Yeah, as long as your bookcase doesn't tip over.
Yeah, well, it already did, remember?
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions regarding this and a potential town meeting request?
Good job to Janet HKT for pushing that bid package up. So I don't know how comfortable you feel with it, but I like it. It's good news. It's going to printer.
We're nervous, but working hard to get it. We'll have an addenda. You know, I've talked to Shane about a pattern, a series of addenda, probably 2. All the consultants have been panicked this week, as they normally do, especially with the loss of 2 weeks. They're all scrambling. So, you know, we're hoping that we have a good package. I think the architectural is in very good shape, but it's a coordination that is the thing that we worry about at this point in time, but we're working hard on it. So, you know, and you know, we'll have the opportunity to reissue drawings as we find things, or by Word documents or spec sections as we go. We're trying to pick up as much of it as we can this week. That's why I've been papering Shane to death with details of the front end, and we'll, you know, doing our best. Thank you. So,
So next thing tonight was
Any other questions regarding the budget and the town meeting? Okay.
So the next thing, just revisiting the trade contract pre-qualification review. We spoke about the 13 trades that we were pre-qualifying for the project. We did get a good response back. We had 84 trade contractors over the 13 trades. The pre-qualification committee met. We reviewed all the submissions. We scored them. As I had mentioned at one of the previous meetings, a score of 70 or over is required to pre-qualify for the project. If you got a score of 69 or less, you were deemed not pre-qualified. If you got a score of 70 or more, you were pre-qualified. So we had 78 contractors out of the 84 who scored 70 or over, and who will be invited to submit bids for the public safety project. A little bit hard to see here, but these are the subcontractors that we recommend are approved for to pre-qualify for the project. We've got seven masons. We have 4 waterproof, damp-proof, and caulking contractors. We have 6 roofers. We have 10 metal window contractors. There's 11 glass and glazing contractors. There was 1 firm we don't recommend that we pre-qualify, glass and mirror. We have 4 ceramic tile contractors, 4 acoustic ceiling tile contractors, 3 resilient floor contractors. There's 1 firm that we're not recommending we pre-qualify, 5 painters, 5 fire protection, 6 plumbers. We have 7 HVAC. There's 3 HVAC contractors we don't recommend, and there's 6 electrical out of 7 that we recommend we pre-qualify. You know, we took a good look at the HVAC, given the nature of the project. given that the majority of the HVAC is replacing those units on the roof and the air handling unit. We were just concerned with some of the previous experience that some of these contractors had with that type of work, working in this type of environment. We used the same criteria for everybody, but they didn't make the minimum scores. So, good coverage in every trade. The only one that we have only 3 in is a resilient flooring, which isn't unusual for that trade. It's not unusual to just get 4 in acoustic tile, but lots of coverage throughout. So this is the list of trade contractors we'd like to recommend approval to pre-qualify for bidding.
Shane, do you want to vote on this?
I think we should vote, Chip. Just based on the pre-qualification committee was myself, David, Chip, Tom Galvin, and Scott. But I think we bring a recommendation. If we can get an approval from the committee, we can move forward.
I move that we approve the trade contractors that submitted for approval to allow them to bid on the contract.
I will second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Chip?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And Janine?
Yes.
And I'd like to thank specifically Chip and Tom for handling this on behalf of the committee. Appreciate that, guys. All right.
And then just have a slide, I'll hand over to Dave to talk a little bit about the GMP, what that will include. We'll certainly have a draft for November 4th, and then we'll look for some sort of approval, whether it's the full GMP or an interim GMP sometime after town meeting. But I'll hand it over to Dave to talk about that.
So those of you that were involved with us at Galvin will sort of remember how our GMP is structured, but for those that don't remember or weren't involved, they can go through sort of a real quick summary on what goes into the GMP. Obviously, the GMP is a contract amendment that switches our contract status from pre-construction and authorizes us to proceed with the construction. So, the major thing that the GMP allows us to do is to start authorizing or requesting approval for authorization to sign up subcontractors. Obviously, we just went through the pre-qualification of filed subs. They'll all be hard bids in hand at that point, so that's really easy to establish those trades. And then for all the non-filed sub trades, we have them on the same bid schedule. But as you can probably imagine, with the way things are right now, 3 weeks is tight. So I'm guessing that we'll want to chase some additional subs, but we should have plenty of coverage to get a really good sense of where we are. And hopefully it's only going to get better if we decide that we want to do an interim and try to get another one down the line that's got a little tighter numbers, but we'll see where we stand at this, at that time. So the amendment's going to have the contractual language that gives us a notice to proceed with construction, and for the total price that the GMP that was encompassing everything, including contingencies, our general conditions, all that. We call it sort of above the line and below the line. So the above the line items are all the trades and in their, the non-trades and the filed sub-trade bids. And then the below the lines, all our markups and general conditions, et cetera. Of course, there'll be a signature page. So the whoever's authorized to sign will sign off on it. And then we'll have all the backup, and that includes a breakdown of the trade by trade summary per spec section, all the above the line items I talked about. Then they'll have a breakdown of the summary of all the below the line items, the markups, the fees, contingencies, all that type of stuff. And then we'll have our estimate detail, that not just a summary, but all the, the components that made up that summary per trade. So you can get a hard look at, just what's in that division 15. It's it's HVAC or whatever, everything that's included in it. You'll have a detailed breakdown of all those numbers. There'll be a hold and allowance tracking document. So when especially where we're anticipating a sizable, well, maybe not sizable, but we're anticipating an addenda. There may be some early trades that we buy that, we know there's some stuff that they didn't catch. We want to make sure we have money for it, so we're not asking for a change order. We'll have some holds for those types of things. Any allowances that were established for things that were difficult to price, we'll have a tracking log of all those items that we can talk through. There'll be a list of any clarifications and qualifications that we may have. There's a few that I'm ready to submit now, so we can start reviewing them with Shane. We'll have the contract schedule. So we've developed, and it's in the bid documents, but we'll reinsert it to the GMP so it's clear on exactly the date of substantial completion that we'll establish by contract. And then, as I said, there'll be we typically do a change order type document to make the signatures so that it gets tracked that way, especially now with pre-construction. I believe, Shane, you want to roll into the GMP, correct?
Yeah, that's how we've typically done it.
Yeah, so then we'll just essentially it'll be a change order to the current contract since it's amendment to the current
Amendment,
contract. Yep. So there'll be the signature page will essentially be a change order summary sheet. And that's it. Again, it's pretty sizable. The schedule will probably be about 35 pages in itself. So, it'll be a pretty significant document for review. But at the end of the day, we're going to get a draft, and hopefully it's in really close to final shape before the town meeting, so that it's we know exactly where we stand, and hopefully it's only going to come down from there.
Dave, do you buy out your subs with the schedule attached?
Absolutely. Yeah, we actually, we like to even, we definitely need to include it in the bid documents for the filed subs, but we prefer to have the same bid package go, unless it's an early package, which because of the schedule change, we didn't have that. We would just include it, the same exact package that goes to the filed subs goes to the non-filed subs, with the exception of some scope riders that, we may ask our non-filed subs to include a day of patching or something like that. So other than that, everything's in the contract documents as submitted to the filed subs.
Will you also look at, same as we did with the Galvin, to see when the warranties and guarantees commence? Right, sometimes it's at the end of the we did it and we tried to get 2 years rather than 1 year out of people, and most of them did that.
Yeah.
If you remember, right?
Yeah, when I get the final bid set from Janet, the one that goes to the print room, we'll review that and see how they specified it. And then if there's anything that, on this job, I don't think, because the addition's so small, we plan on using, for instance, one of the big ones that comes up is, use of the new heating system for temporary heat for a while. That we don't see that happening here, but that's a good one where, we'll start those units up way early. But so we want to extend those warranties typically, stuff like that. So we'll take a look and see how the spec was written. And if we think there's anything that we want to add to that, we can put it in an addenda to add to their scope riders or whatever.
Yeah, or an extra, change of filters once the job's complete, whatever we need to do.
Yeah.
Same as we did at the Galvin.
Yep, exactly. Our HVAC scope writer, I believe, has the additional change of filters in there. But again, until I see how Janet's sub specs were written, I won't know if we've done enough or we need to add more or take some out. We'll get through it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? GMP?
Yeah, I was just going to say on those warranties, especially with the rooftop equipment, it's a short schedule relatively, compared to, big school projects. So I think we should just have a blanket warranty that, warranty starts on 15th of March, 2023 or whatever that date's going to be. And so you don't have, 5 different warranty periods for 5 different major pieces of equipment.
On that particular topic, Shane, I believe my scope writer that I've already included insists that those warranties get extended so that it goes to, like, those manufacturers typically insist that when you start them, the warranty starts, and therefore you would have a date that might not line up with the date of substantial completion. So we insist that they have to extend the warranties from the startup date to the start, at least to start to the date of substantial completion. So it might be, let's say it's 12 months, it might be 13 and a half, but we insist that they need to extend that so that they don't have any lag time on when they would expire, so the owner knows if the date of substantial completion is X and it's 12 months, it wasn't a month earlier than that because you started up a month earlier than that, and that's a manufacturing thing. So we have that already in the scope rider. Again, I just need to do some comparison.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's the point I'm making. Yeah. Just, I have a couple of quick questions, Joe, if I can.
Yep.
So, Dave, we know the trade contracts, we're going to take the low bidder. With the non-trade, you'll get some, bids back by the 3rd of November. You guys usually go through a scope review and a best and final. Can you just sort of explain that quick for folks that,
Absolutely.
that your non-trades, the number we include on November 4th may not be the final because you still have some negotiating to do on your side.
That's a great point. Based on the timing, I think it's very unlikely we'll have much time, if any, to descope anyone at that point because we're rushing this out so quick. And the due diligence, that's one of the main benefits of going CM at risk is that we have the ability to bring in the non-filed subs and make sure that they've got the scope that was documented, maybe some scope that wasn't documented, if we can get them, understand what it might be. And then also, if there's some things that, we want to make sure they understand, or maybe they'll offer some things that might be a savings, or that might be something that we didn't consider. Those descope meetings are significantly beneficial. And then at the same time, if we need people to sharpen their pencil, or if we have a really good sub that's really close, we can make sure that every sub aligns their scope. If there's somebody who didn't carry insulation on piping, for instance, and it was clear that they should have, we'll make sure they get it because we don't want to, get a change order later and then have to fight whether or not it was included in the contract. So we'll make sure in those descope meetings that not only do they have everything, but they have the right price for everything. And if we need them to go back and take a look and sharpen their pencils, we'll ask them to do that, where we don't have that opportunity with the filed subs. So like Shane said, because of the timing, we probably won't have a chance to have that process take place. We'll do that immediately after. And then, so the interim GMP that we give you for town meeting, hopefully it will just get better and go down from there with a fully descoped list of subcontractors. And of course, Shane, your group and the design team will certainly be invited and hope will participate in those meetings as well.
Yeah. And just can you explain, Dave, the difference between a hold and an allowance?
Sure. So I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. Allowances generally are owner's money, the way I look at it. So if we don't spend an allowance, that goes back into the owner's contingency. If we overspend, it's a change order. So we make sure that we have a discussion ahead of time so we understand what that allowance is for. If it's a hold, usually that's something that we know as a CM that was missing from scope that we have to buy. And therefore it should be considered spent money because we know we need to spend it. And that's a CM contingency type item. So if we overrun a hold, that would be a CM contingency drawdown. But again, those are items that we clearly know we need, but we just can't, we don't have enough information, or if somebody didn't price it, so we'll carry that. An allowance might be for something that, let's just say we know we have X amount of unsuitable soils, but we don't know what the weight's going to be because we don't know how wet it is, or we don't know where it's going to be taken to what facility. Galvin's a great example, Chip, you'll remember all that fun soil stuff we had. That's a great allowance type of situation where it's really difficult to know what the unit prices are going to be or what it's going to equate to. So we make a educated summary guess of, let's call it $200,000. And if we spend less, the owner side gets the money back. That's kind of the general difference.
And then we have fun discussions of which is a hold and which is an allowance. We never let Dave get many allowances. We make him take a lot of holds.
Oh, he gets all the holds and it's all on his contingencies as well. Right, Dave?
Absolutely.
All right. As long as you understand that, but when we're starting.
Dave says, here we go again.
Hey, the more holds, the better. It's a much more easier conversation when I have to do a drawdown on it than I have to ask for money from your side.
Damn right. All right. Any other questions regarding the GMP? All right. Thanks, Dave.
No problem.
Shane?
So just nothing else from me. Janet, should review something.
Shane, you asked me if I could show the last or the final sort of landscape drawing to explain to people. Do you want me to show that?
Yeah, we can go through that quickly. Just certainly
Yeah.
the front of the building and what we're doing.
Okay.
Light poles, trees.
Can you share? Let me see your screen. Or does Joe have to do that?
I think I have to do it. There you go.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
I'm still
No,
disabled.
Janine.
No, yeah, I made Janine.
Okay.
All right, Janine, what are you
Go,
gonna do?
please, Janine, show what you got.
Come on, Janine.
I'm sorry. Somebody.
Yeah. I hit the wrong button there. All right. Sorry, Janet.
Okay. All right. How's that? Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
It's not the darkest of drawings, but Shane wanted me to, I went over this a little bit with Shane last week when I was with the chief, and he saw it as well. So I just wanted to go over with what we're left with when we add these additions on. And, there's an addition here, there's an addition here, and there's addition in back there. So I wanted to go over the parking. So there are currently 18 parking spaces, and at the end we are going to have 18 parking spaces. They've shifted, of course, as the entry has shifted. You have this extension that comes out now, and we have an extension. It's a little bit smaller because the parking spaces are per code, and the van and the regular parking spaces are per code now. I don't know if they were before, it's not relevant. And then I'm going to blow this up a little bit more so you can see the actual entry. So you're going in here. We are moving the flag poles, which we always had in the drawings, up over to the just to the right of the new glass box entry. We use those elements to give some elevation to that element to make it a little bit more pronounced. Our landscape architect pointed out to us that we had the flag poles too close to the building and the flag would whap against the building. So we shifted them a little bit so that isn't too annoying to anyone. And then we've moved the monument and over to that side as well. So that's what will happen inside the building. And then the other couple things, and maybe Dave can comment on this, the light poles, that there's 4 of them that are in front of the building with the big light poles. And so they're not shown on this, somehow they got missed from this drawing, but there's these 2 here. This one right here is actually sitting right in front of the building. So we're going to have to shift that. And the other 2, we plan on leaving where they are. They'll have to be, I believe, removed during construction because you just won't have the room to do the construction. Dave, is that a good comment about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, they'll be removed and then reinstalled.
Reinstalled. And the question is whether that foundation or that, what's below grade will come out as well, or whether we'll be able to salvage around that. We should probably talk about that because we need to do that. And then the other 2, we're going to be replacing all the sidewalk along here as well. So the question is, do we need to shift this one because it's sitting right by the building? And do we shift the second one so we get an even light pattern on the paving? So that is the question. Same thing happens with the trees. There are 4 trees. Those trees will not survive this construction. And the other tree is right here in front of the building, and that will not survive construction. So the landscape architect and I talked about putting some new trees in, some smaller ones, and then putting some trees that aren't in the sidewalk. So you're not sort of walking over them, but sort of more columnar trees. And I don't remember what she actually selected in the end, but some trees in the green area in front of the buildings. That is up for discussion with you guys. That's, sort of something we haven't had a chance to talk to you about, but that's the concept. If you want to put them, the other option is not to do any trees. The trees actually are quite nice in front of the building to have trees in front of the building, but it is certainly something to think about. And those, I don't have the name of those trees right in front of me, the listing of them. I can tell you from the schedule, that they're green pillar pin oaks. And there are 7 of them planned for the site, and those are right in, let me just move that in front of the building. If I can move the drawing, it would be nice. So those are the 7 trees, and we've moved them back closer to the building rather than out into the sidewalk. So Shane asked me to show the other one quick thing is we are relocating the lights. You have 2 lights now with a slightly smaller width of that element that comes out on the site. We sort of put them behind each other. I don't even know if they're needed, but you know, if you've all walked into that building a million times, there are 2 light poles in the front and the flag poles are behind them. And so we're really changing the whole image of that. And so their question to me is, do I even want to relocate them at all? I don't know how much they offer as far as light. They're not down lights, but they're little posted globes. So we can talk about whether it is something you want to do or just leave one of them even. In there, and they sort of line up with the building, the front of the building now. So that's what it looks like. The back of the building has the dumpster location, and this is the final layout of that. Bunch of bollards now. You know, as you know, we're more protective of public safety buildings now with bollards than we used to be because of 9/11. So we tend to have bollards in front of anything that's approachable by a vehicle. So there's a bunch of bollards. Do anybody have any questions about that? What we're doing? Something you like to take out, put in the trees? We can do it by addenda. We can take trees out, put them in, remove a light or whatever. But I wanted to show you the plan.
Trees look so close up front. I think
I was going to ask how big they get. Yeah.
In 20, you know, the pin oaks can grow pretty tall late in life, but like they're still a pretty big tree, even though they're compact. So I would worry about the foundation.
You want to move them out?
Well, I don't think you can move them out because you have a sidewalk with light poles that you need to have ADA. So I don't know what all the distances are with that walk and that where the trees are, but it looks pretty tight already.
I'd like to look at it once it's kind of in.
Yeah.
Landscaping is the last thing that happens, so.
Yeah, things happen and then you decide if you need a tree.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I can talk to her about anything else. I can talk to her about overall height. They are, you know, we tried to find, you know, something column or something tight because of the small amount of green that's left there. Anyhow, okay.
Yeah, our town part people won't take care of it as it starts hitting windows and stuff like that too. So
Yeah.
we need to think about that.
Okay.
I hate removing trees and not putting the same number back though.
Yeah,
So
that's the problem. Yeah.
We really want to encourage, you know, I'm trying to zoom up and I'm realizing it's not my screen, but like, I don't know, like up to the dumpster to the left side too, like are those new those 3 right by the entrance of those 3 trees?
Which one, these?
Left on the left side.
Center Street entrance.
These 4 here?
No, up.
Up here. Oh, those are shrubs. Those are shrubs. Those are just
up. Yeah.
And there's nothing up there. There's nothing up there. At the end, I think there's a little bit of lawn right there. And this is all paving, as it is now.
Could that lawn be the electric car space?
Well, there's a parking space in front of this. You know, I can sort of maybe draw you, you know,
I know it's a tight lot for landscaping.
Yeah, whoops, I can't without, so there's something right, that's not a good way of describing it, but there is a parking space right there. With the addition, we had to push it back. This was the scheme that people approved, so to speak. So there's so very few opportunities for anything here. And you know, we can talk about it more. I mean, should we leave them in for the bid right now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
We're not gonna, we'll establish a landscape bid price, but we won't pull the trigger on landscape for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good idea.
What kind of trees did you say that you currently had designed for?
But that was, they did the green pillar pin oak.
Pin oaks.
Because for the sidewalk trees, they often use a narrower tree. Something like that might work better.
Which one?
I'm not sure what-
What
I'm
did
not
you
sure
call?
what the speed, I'm not sure what kind it is. I had to find out.
Yeah, I asked
Tennis
for,
club-
I call them
Little
columnar.
little
They
leaf
look,
lindens.
yeah, very slender. And this is what she
Yes.
came up, but I'll ask her again if she has any other ideas because of
Okay.
the height. And the canopy, eventually the, okay. So that was that.
So just the bollards also, John, and I don't know if the police department have seen those, if they're okay with those.
Yeah.
I know they protect the building, but I reversed my car into a tree in front of that building before.
Yeah, I don't, I mean, we've been putting,
Yeah.
we put them in, if our grade is raised, we don't have to do them
Right.
as much, but this is right
But-
on grade. You could plow right into the front of the building if you
Right.
wanted.
I don't think
Janet,
it's
can
a
I
bad
comment on
idea.
the bollards?
I mean, when we get to it later on, is this something that we, ask Joe to have Dennis be involved in, like thinking about this?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Joe won't want them, right? Because they get in the way of his snow blowers or whatever he uses to clear the sidewalks. That's why I want to ask the police first.
Yeah, Chief Scory?
So my comment on the bollards is I like them because they protect, the areas that they protect are mostly glass. So when you're
Mhm.
looking where the two handicap spaces are, that is the old entrance to the building. That's going to be all glass to the records office there.
Yeah,
And then we have,
there is masonry, but it is glass, a lot of glass there. Yeah.
there's a lot of glass there. And then we have the new entrance, and then to the right of the new entrance is glass for the fire department
Right.
administrative offices. So I agree with the bollards. I think it's a great idea, especially out back. I just wanted to comment also on the trees out front. I like trees, big fan of trees, but we have a very limited amount of space there between the sidewalk and the building. And so if we plant trees there, they'll be growing against the building. We'll have branches hitting windows, blocking the views of windows. And if you've been down to the building already and seen the trees that currently exist and what they've done to the sidewalks, it's a safety hazard down there now. I think if we could go with maybe some shrubs that wouldn't heave the sidewalks and still provide some greenery in front of the building, I think that would be better.
Yeah, I think at this point we can get a number for landscaping and then play with what it becomes.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably literally near the end.
Because the redesign right now is difficult.
Yeah, I mean, we own something right now. It is a
Right.
tough place to put our 7 blades of grass that, on a project like this, there's just not a lot of place to get any kind of momentum going for, for greenery or, a statement or whatever. So anyhow, okay, I just wanted to let you know, we'll keep it as it is and keep the bollards. And Shane, we could talk about them. They're pretty standard now, in front of all public buildings, the police departments, fire departments. things
Right,
like
yeah,
that.
we put that in schools, but they usually set back a couple of feet.
If we had a couple
Yeah,
feet.
but we don't have it here. So I don't know if we can put on the other side of the sidewalk. It looks like you got some shrubs in front of the new
Yeah,
records
there's some
room.
shrubs there, but there's no place to
Yeah,
put them
no,
here.
yeah.
So if you're gonna put them, do you want them in a line or do you wanna, kind of,
Probably want it consistent.
yeah, probably consistent. It's a tough one,
Yep.
I said, how many do we need, and so this is what we came up with, and it's not illogical at all. So, okay, so that's
No, the
that.
most important part is that Chief Scory is involved and wants them, so that's
Yep.
an easy one.
Yeah, I'm sure Chief Sullivan feels the same about the fire department administration person. I saw him on earlier, but I don't know if he's still there.
Can you hear me?
Yep, Chief Sullivan, there you are.
Yeah, no, I complete agreement with the bollards. I think they need to be there. I just wanted to point out with the trees, I want to back up Chief Scory with the fact that the trees are pushing up the sidewalks, and we've had a number of citizens who have tripped on the lip that's created when the sidewalk gets heaved up, and they've fallen, and we've had some very serious injuries to citizens just trying to walk into the public safety building. So I would really encourage you to come up with another type of vegetation besides trees. I just don't think, I love trees, but there's no room for them there.
Okay. All right, so I think, you know, and I can, you know, again, I'll go back to, you know, the landscape architect. I asked her in specific to put something on because we were, you know, we
Yeah.
didn't want to neuter the place by taking all the trees out without, you know, acknowledging that we could shift the locations to trying to find something narrow. And we'll get back to you on that one as we go. We'll own these for right now, and it should be okay. So, okay, so that's the plan. Any other questions before I get rid of that? It's a tight site, you know. So, okay, so that's that. Anything else, Shane?
No, I forgot to follow up with you today, John. I spoke to Chip yesterday about the zoning. Did you hear anything back from them? Do we have
The
a
what?
date? The
About the what?
zoning?
No, we haven't heard anything. And I completely forgot about it. We've been so consumed with other things that got submitted. Chip, do you have any comments?
Well, so, yeah, I would have loved to have seen the package before it went in. But I told you months ago that we had Brian McGrail, a local lawyer that does all our public buildings pro bono. So I just want something sent to him, but we don't have to worry about that for the next 2 or 3 days.
Okay, okay.
I mean, it sounds like it's going to be a pretty easy non-conform. It's already a non-conforming building. It's probably going to be a continuation of a non-conformity that is not more detrimental to the neighborhood. So it should be a pretty simple. But I would have him present it.
Okay.
Chief Scory, you had your hand up. Chief.
Joe, I had it up before about the bollards and the landscape.
Right.
I'm all set now. Thank you.
All right. All righty. All right, Shane, anything else on the public safety?
No.
Okay.
No, good, thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody. And last but not least, Mr. Conway, the DPW.
Good night.
Good night, Janet.
Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Dick.
Burnt lasagna for dinner now.
You took it out of the oven. Cold lasagna.
All right, Joe.
Yep. So for the record, Joe Conway, Public Works Director. Joining me, I see Jamie Fair and some of his colleagues from Weston and Sampson. I apologize for not being at the last meeting. I had 2 other commitments at the same time, and we needed a little bit more time to get some of the data together to give you the brief presentation that I'd like to turn things over to Jamie to talk about. Quickly, we're just going to give you a review of some of the work that we've done to date. At the last meeting, I was in attendance. Chip, you had asked if we could take a look at the Nahant Street site and kind of vet that out on the feasibility of whether or not building construction down there might make sense. So we have some information related to that. And we also have some things that we're going to talk about kind of related to our current site now and some of the different test fits that Weston and Sampson has started to look at and wander into. So if there are no objections or anything else that anybody wants to talk about, I would turn it right over to Jamie. I think, Mr. Chair, he'll probably need permission to share a screen because he has a PowerPoint slide that he'll walk through as we talk.
All right, Jamie, you're there.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Joe. Let me just get this pulled up here. Can you folks see this here?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. So thank you again, Jamie Fair with Weston and Sampson, project manager for this project. And as Joe indicated, just going to give you a brief update on the DPW feasibility study, our progress to date. So far, we've completed the space needs assessment, and just give you an overview of what we're going to touch on for each point, and then we'll go into additional details. We've assessed several sites, including the Nahant Street site as requested. We've looked closely at the existing DPW site and did some site layout plans or 5 options. Those are the test fits that Joe had mentioned. We also prepared some total project cost estimates to give us a sense of where we are from a cost standpoint. And we're also have some historical DPW costs to share with you to try and put some things in perspective from a cost standpoint. This slide shows the programming results. This is our current space needs assessment, including administration, employee facilities, among others. And we're at a total of a little over 103,000 square feet at this point. We would like to note that this has been cut by 7,500 square feet already from the initial ideal scenario that was put out there in an effort to help control costs and to get the program to fit on the site. You'll see as we move forward that the site is very tight. There's some challenges there. This slide shows the Nahant Street site. You can see this is the yard waste area in here. And the issue that we found with this site is that we are in a flood zone. You can see pretty much the whole site here is in that FEMA flood zone. So we had some concerns related to that. And we just summarized our initial findings on this. But as I mentioned, we're in the FEMA flood zone. We are adjacent to wetlands and the river. We also have residents abutting the property on one side, on the east side of the property. If we were to continue to looking at this, we certainly would need to do a flood study to take a closer look at the flood zone issues. We understand that there's been yard waste filling going on there for years now. And so there's definitely some concerns related to subgrade and the geotechnical concerns with foundation construction due to the filling activities. It is an active public yard waste drop off. So that'd be a function that would need to be, displaced. And then we also understand that the gas company has a material storage facility there. So some of the challenges that we saw coming out of the gates with the Nahant Street site. From our last meeting, we had mentioned before, we looked at these other sites, worked with Joe on these. We looked at the Vinton Street ball fields and the Nacella playground. And both of these are active ball fields, and turns out they're also in a flood zone as well. So we didn't consider those further for review. So with that site analysis, that really brings us back to the existing DPW site. You can see the aerial here located right off North Avenue at the corner of Main Street. And at this site, we have a town-owned parcel of about 1.92 acres. This is all owned by the town, as I'm sure you know. And then we also looked at incorporating this adjacent parcel that's currently privately owned, because this site is small and we have this immediate adjacent parcel. That's another 0.77 acres. So with that parcel, we get up to just about 2.7 acres to work with. And so that's what we looked at for our various test fits and layouts, and I'll walk through those now.
So Jamie, let me just ask the question.
Sure.
I mean, you're talking about a building. Are you talking about eminent domain? Are you talking about buying that? What are we talking about if you're planning on using that 0.77 acres of the Kiltron building?
Right. So I guess maybe Joe, I might ask you to chime in here. We just had some preliminary discussions. I'm not sure of the exact mechanism of how that would be attained, but I know that's something that we wanted to take a look at there.
So it's, Chip, to answer that, it's something that potentially could start as a conversation. I think that if we weren't to think about that, it would take the constraints of the site that exists now and make it infinitely harder for Weston and Sampson to try to figure out a way to make our existing footprint work. That being said, absolutely nothing is written in stone. So if that looks like, that is probably an option that the committee or the town would not want to think about, or at least try to have a conversation about, then we'd have to readjust and plan for it. But I think that the challenge with kind of where we are and how we're laid out is circulation, vehicle traffic and getting in and out to do business. And the more that Weston and Simpson went back to looking at, Jamie's group probably went through, honestly, between 14 and 16 different layouts to try to figure out how to get all the puzzle pieces to fit. How do we get 70% of the puzzle pieces to fit? And, you know, the keystone to that whole piece and keeping our operation there and making sure that we could operate safely and efficiently, that adjacent parcel is probably going to have to be something that we're going to have to think about our options there, and whether or not we want to have the conversation to see whether that is actually palatable and attainable.
Right. And the other piece I would say to staying on site is, you know, if you look at all the town needs, you know, is this a spot for a combined Walton Greenwood Elementary School?
Right.
You know, and I don't throw that at you guys to have to worry about, but when you look at town planning and overview, you know, does it make sense for DPW to be here?
Honestly, candidly, from even an economic, so a logistical standpoint from the town, like you just mentioned, it probably makes sense for us to not be in this position, right? We're kind of right.
What are our options?
Exactly, and believe me, we looked at outside of blasting ledge out of Farm Street, where they wanted to look at the feasibility for a hockey rink, or, you know, doing some serious work in the wetlands. There really wasn't one piece of property that we didn't look at. The more we got into it, the more that, you know, that conceptual rumor that was out there about the possibility of a Camp Curtis type project.
That was like a wonderful rumor.
Yeah, honest to God, it would be the greatest thing for the town, right? Because even if we weren't to exist here and the town didn't want to use it for town purposes to kind of connect all the different, you know, subsections of town together, from an economic development standpoint, we control the lot, and this could be turned into something that could totally be transformative for that whole corner. So if we could find a place to exist, I mean, some of the things that we do, it makes sense for us to be an outlier, off, you know, kind of out of sight, out of mind. We can very quietly do what we have to do and operate. It's just the level of build out in all the other areas in town. Anything that was decent enough to get into and not be, you know, extremely cost prohibitive has kind of already been developed at this point.
Okay.
Kip,
Thank you.
You must not have to drive children to the Galvin at all. Adding a combined elementary school to this part of town, you'd have to build a big dig and an overpass system, I think. So whatever planning, I think this option's a little cart before the horse. And I mean that in just a, you know, an honest way. Like, you're assuming a lot that you're going to take this contaminated, but possibly contaminated property in some fashion, in some way the town can afford. Like, I'm going to let you finish your presentation, but this gives me concern because it's betting on a lot of stuff where you don't have a lot of control over, I don't think.
Unfortunately, Bill, I think at this point, unless we were to do something substantially smaller, we're almost at that point.
Okay. Would you like me to keep going through this and then we can
go ahead.
continue?
Sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure. Yeah, thank you for the comments. So I'm going to start with option 2. It's a little out of order, but as you see, as we go through these, this is, I would say, an option that we prefer. We think it works the best from a functionality standpoint and maximizes the use of the site while still using more traditional building construction. And I think that will start to make more sense as we walk through this. So looking at this layout, in this area of the building, we have employee facilities and administrative offices at a ground level here, if you can see my cursor. And then we have the wash bay and the various shops that run up the side in this area here. And then in this middle ground, we have the fleet maintenance bays through this area. And we have an open courtyard area in front. And then this portion of the building would be ground level fleet storage for the large DPW trucks. And then we have fuel up front here to accommodate town fueling. And as I mentioned, it's a tight site, so we're going up to a second level. So this would be a ramp that brings us up to a second level here for fleet storage that extends from inside the garage. And then employee and visitor parking would be over here on the right side of the plan.
So I assume this, Joe and Jamie,
Mhm.
involves all the water department vehicles as well.
So
That's, yeah,
the
go
goal
ahead,
from
Joe.
the, I was just, sorry, Jimmy. Where we started was to see, can we take understand what our operation is and can we fit our whole operation here? And then kind of work backwards from there.
Okay,
So-
and your whole, because I know water is kind of tucked all over the place right now.
Right, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we operate, I think, in 7 different buildings. So what we're trying to do is see if what's the majority that we can get in one site functioning together, synchronously. So
Okay,
that's where it started. And then, some of these other options, we kind of whittle that away a little bit and carve off different pieces to see, what does it look like if we take, the buildings division, for example, and just to throw it out there, what if they existed somewhere else? How does the site differentiate
Yeah.
with part of the program not being all together in one space?
Right, right. So we'll keep moving forward here and we'll get into some of those more details a little bit later. But this red area here, this is an area where the offices and employee facilities would extend out over the parking to get the square footage needed for the program and co-locate that with the parking. And so this second level here would be offices and employee facilities, level 2. And then this level 2 would be additional fleet storage where that ramp gives us access to that upper level for the smaller DPW vehicles. And then we'd have a third level here to finish out the needed space for offices and employee facilities. And we have a massing diagram. And this is just a simple block diagram, a massing diagram to give you a sense of the space. As we move forward, we can, get more elaborate with these, but we're still at a concept level. So here's a view looking from Main Street. If you see the key over here to the right, this is the administrative offices and employee facilities at Cantilever. This would actually be supported, but you can see it, spans over the parking, followed by vehicle maintenance that runs down the right side. And then we have the 2-level vehicle storage facility over here on the right. And then we have the 3rd level here for the administrative offices. And this is another massing diagram looking from North Avenue, where you can see the 2-level vehicle storage here on the left with the ramp going up, vehicle maintenance in that open courtyard that we talked about here. And then again, the 3-story admin and employee facilities. And this is a summary of the program. So you probably heard me mention earlier, initially we're at 103,000. This is down to 90,000 with the 2 levels. This fits most everything except for we're short on employee parking by about 15 spots. We're short by 1 large truck on the lower level and 20 smaller trucks. We don't have room for those smaller trucks either. So a little short here, but we're awfully close, I would say, with this program. And this next option, option 1, is certainly, I'll say up front, this is outside the box, but this is what this would look like if we took everything and put it on this site. And so here we've got fleet maintenance and on the right-hand side over here. And then the fleet storage for the large trucks is on this lower level over here to the left. And then we have that interfacing with shops on the lower level and offices and employee facilities. And then the fueling would be up on the right side here. And then we'd have this ramp that would run up to the 2nd level along the back side of the property. And then this red area, this would all be a 2nd level here. And I'll walk through this a little bit more. So that's the ramp that gets us up there. And then this tan here is that 2nd level, where this would be an open deck. It'd be a canopy, but an open deck for employee parking to get it up over that courtyard to fit all of the employee parking that we would need for the full program. And then on this left side, this would be an enclosed second level, minimally heated for the balance of the DPW trucks and equipment. This is all stack parking. We recognize this is not preferred from an operational standpoint, but just as a test fit, what does it look like if we got it all here? This is a way to make it work, and it could be improved if we want to go in this direction, but we'll start here. And then we have level 3 over on this side with the employee facilities and offices on that third level there. And so another massing diagram from Main Street, we have the ramp that comes up the back here. And then this is that deck that spans over the open courtyard for employee parking. And then we have the 3-level structure on the right, vehicle storage and admin. And then we have vehicle maintenance over here on the left. And this is from North Avenue. You see the 3-level structure here on the left. This would be an elevator shaft. And we're doing a similar sort of canopy projection here to get some more parking in underneath the upper levels. And then this is that parking deck that goes over the site courtyard area here. So definitely outside the box, we recognize that. It's actually a smaller structure and it fits more, but that's because we have that significant stacked parking arrangement. And that structure, we're separating out the parking deck, which is another about 26,000 square feet, because that's really more of a site feature. It's not like heated enclosed space. So this would fit the entire program. And we'll talk about costs in a moment, but I just want to go through some of the other options that we looked at just to give you a sense of some other possibilities, but we didn't really fully carry forward due to some shortcomings. So this option 3, this is level 1. With this courtyard, really we feel is too tight at 65 feet with, kind of facing overhead doors here. Not good from a truck circulation standpoint. Fleet maintenance would be undersized from what is really required at this point, and the wash bay would be exiting into the vehicle storage garage. So we looked at this layout, didn't really like it, but just wanted to share it with you so you kind of understand the process we went through. And this would be a 2-level structure. Option 4, similar thing. Didn't really love it from a functionality standpoint, but we did look at this type of configuration, and the fueling was really in a difficult spot and a lot of other operational concerns. So we didn't carry that forward either. And this would also be a 2-level structure. And then this 5th option, this fits quite a bit of the program from a parking standpoint, but the wash bay would be undersized. We can only access the shops in the wash bay from inside, and we weren't able to fit the fueling on the property with this layout. So we didn't carry that forward too far either. But so just to give you a sense, like Joe said, we've looked at a lot of different options to try to get this to work. So I know these are big numbers, and we'll talk about historical costs and kind of how we got here. But construction 2021, we're about 49.6 million. And this is based on a high-level concept cost from our independent cost estimator. He's done a number of these DPW facilities, has a good feel for these buildings and the construction market. We're escalating that out 2 years at 5%. So that's getting us out to 2023 construction. We're in the 54 million range there. And then we have the A&E permitting, environmental. There are some significant environmental concerns here. There was a meeting package that has more detail to these numbers. You may not have had a chance to look at it yet, but we can provide that also if you haven't seen it. But we're carrying an $800,000 allowance for environmental remediation. That's really, an educated guess at this point, to be further assessed. Still a lot of unknowns. Looking at ground improvement programs with the presence of peat layer that's buried, similar to probably what you've seen at the adjacent Galvin School. Owner contingency, in case there's additional site concerns, testing that's needed related to environmental, and then construction contingency. So again, I know this is a big number, but that's what we're coming up with now, coming out of the gates. And this is the larger of the two for the full program. Option 2.
That number, guys, that number doesn't include buying the site. We're
You're correct,
taking it
sir.
by eminent domain.
That's correct. That's the one that is not in there. Yes.
So how can you even, right? So you gotta have a line under that that says site purchase. And
Right.
God
Yeah.
knows what that is.
Right.
And yeah, environmental is going to be more than that. From what I hear, I don't know that, but from what
Not if you build on
hear.
top, Phil. You can do, if you're not digging any foundations or anything, you're probably okay.
Okay, yeah,
But I'm more concerned that Kitron is worse, and then what's it gonna cost you to get Kitron? So, you can say it's a $75 million project, but is it? Who knows?
Right.
Right. Yeah, we don't, these numbers are not pinned down yet. There's a lot of questions around that adjacent parcel that need to be vetted out. We just wanted to put this out to you. This is where we are right now, and you're correct. That is an open question that needs to be further assessed.
And what was remind me of our project dates that we were trying to hit? What were we, do you have the project dates there in front of you? I don't have.
I don't have those at my fingertips. I know that it extended out. It's extended out a bit further than what we were initially estimating, primarily due to the site issues. We've been having a heck of a time trying to find a site that'll fit this program. We've been talking with Joe a lot. I know he's been working a lot trying to find these sites for us. And so it has extended out a bit from that standpoint. And, once we kind of hone in on and understand exactly which site we're going to be on, and we know which parcels we're going to be working on, then we can, kind of quickly finalize that. But until some of these bigger questions are answered, we are a little bit of in a holding pattern. We are going to keep moving forward with the things we know we can do. We're going to do the environmental assessment of the two parcels. That's a file review with DEP and a site walk, but no testing at this point. We can also move forward with the hazardous materials survey of the existing buildings for asbestos and lead paint. So we're kind of doing everything we can in the meantime while we're, waiting for, and we had to have this meeting once we get through this, some guidance as to, okay, are we staying at this site? Do we want to pursue both parcels? Those questions we kind of need to pin down.
Well, I think, Joe, I guess that question comes back to you as to what conversations you and Steve have had. But if acquiring the Kitron site is a no-go, then we should just stop this project now and not spend another nickel. Because you haven't come up with one option that sits on the original parcel.
We do have one other option to use the existing property at 108 Broadway. The only issues we're going to have with that is it's in watershed. So whatever we would have for environmental issues with the wetlands is only going to be intensified there, being next to the public water supply. But to this point, right, feasibility is practicality. So we wanted to present this to the committee. We've thrown all the options that we can at the board. And do we feel like at this point, is this something that is practical to look into? Would the committee like to see what's the most that we can fit in the existing footprint as is and what that would look like too?
That's where I lean.
Is there a consideration, and I know this goes against one of your main goals, Joe, so don't reach through and strangle me, but separating the parcels, if there's some sort of, I don't know, eminent domain works, but like some other parcel close by, you could take over and put all administration, and again, you would be split, but you would be able to meet all the space needs and not have to deal with contamination possibly next door or having to go to that property at all. Like, I don't know, was that explored? Is that when you're looking at land needs, or was it just trying to keep everything in one site was your main goal no matter what when you looked at the land?
No, I don't think we're not opposed to splitting, right? Any way we can reduce down the amount of space that we physically occupy is only going to make things logistically more efficient. We do have that option for potential, the administrative side to maybe, or a division or two to potentially occupy the property on Broadway. The only question is, what are we going to be constrained from regulation standpoint? And is that going to limit us to even make that effective? And that's a very tangled web to get into.
Right.
So that's something that's going to really need a deeper dive to completely understand that.
Yeah.
Have you and Steve Mayo had a conversation on any of this?
We talk frequently about it. I mean, so Steve and I, basically our conversation to this point is to see what our options are, what our options might be. And then once we figure out kind of the spatial needs that we need and what that might look like, you know, we could come up with an idea or at least start the conversation to see what might be palatable for the town that they would eventually end up supporting.
Right. So I would say that you've kind of done that to this point.
Yeah,
now
I mean, everything to this point is pretty hypothetical. And then now at this point, the question is, you know, is it something we really want to look into to see if we can acquire other space, or do we just build a building that might be, you know, fleet maintenance and as much of the program that we can fit in there, and then still keep, you know, what's located at town hall, what's located, you know, in the civic center there. The folks on Broadway would maybe stay.
I think that option has to be looked into, is what can be fitted into the present site without buying the Kytron site. What can be done there? What can be done to improve that?
Or that and Broadway, or I hear your frustration and I agree with your frustration, because I think it all should be on one site. So I don't know how we solve that.
Well, but this is a feasibility study, and I think all the feasibility and all the options should be out there.
Right, but I don't think it needs to go to any more detail than this.
No, I agree.
You know, we don't need to be doing any more until we kind of come up, okay, what's the most feasible solution to our problem that solves the most issues? We don't need to be doing more test pits and more coring on people's properties. We don't have,
right,
you know, even knowledge of whether they'd even sell or would take. So I think what you've done is you've created some options now, taking the Kytron building. Now you have to say, okay, if we don't take the Kytron building, what are our other options?
Right.
Correct.
In my opinion.
That's mine as well. I don't know how everybody else feels.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Okay. I had just a few more slides here if you want to finish this out. Okay. So that's option one. Option two is the smaller one. I'll keep it brief since we're kind of talking about a different direction, but you know, about 66.8 million for this option, more traditional construction. You actually get a little more building out of it too. I did want to show you this cost comparison just to try and put these costs into perspective. We've been bidding, you know, numerous DPWs over the years, and we've charted the average cost per square foot for the DPW for each year in this blue line here. If you can see my cursor, and then right here is when COVID hit. When it initially hit, we saw a decrease in price. The folks were hungry. There were enough materials out there, so we had this recession-driven dip, and we got these great prices. And then all of a sudden, it reversed later, and then into 2021, labor shortages, material shortages really spiked up to about $533 a square foot. And we've just done some projections here, you know, trying to look forward the best that we can, given what we know. You know, if things assumed at kept moving at a 5% escalation from 2019, you know, without taking into consideration COVID, you know, we feel like we'd be on a line similar to this green line here as we get out into our range of 2023. However, we know that because of COVID, there's been a spike, and that's what this red line is looking to capture. So it accounts for that spike and then continues a 5% increase. And so if we had a more traditional building on, I'll say, a more typical site, we would expect to be around 553. With option two, because we kind of have, we know we have environmental conditions, we have some ground improvements to contend with, and a 2-level facility, we're a little bit more than that right now. That's what these costs are based on. And from working with our independent cost estimator, and then, you know, going further outside the box with option one, as I mentioned, trying to fit it all, you know, that gives us a higher cost of 635, and that's primarily because of that elevated parking deck for the employees. So just to give you an idea of what these numbers look like relative to previous bid prices and looking forward.
So Jamie, if you go back and we look at just the 1.9 acre lot, our current lot, is your assumption that we'd be at, you know, $650 or $700 here? It's just going to be more expensive if we're trying to squish even more and more and go higher and, you know, fit what we can fit there, or?
Yeah, no, sure, that's a good question. I think if we just look at the existing town-owned lot, you know, we're going to have to remove program. You know, this is fitting, you know, essentially the entire program: water, sewer, facilities, fleet, you know, everything. If we're going to just put it on the town-owned property, I think realistically, we would have to, you know, work with Joe and others, you know, and find out, all right, which departments don't have to be at this site. You know, does engineering need to be here? Does facilities need to be here? Water, sewer, you know, just start looking at each division and figure out, you know, what really needs to be here from an operational standpoint and work from there. And then, you know, sort of you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You know, the more program we can take out, then it's easier to fit on the site. And then maybe, you know, maybe we're not talking about a 2-level structure, or it's, you know, a minimal part of the facility is 2-level. You know, sort of the most we can kind of get out of the program and get into traditional single-level construction, the closer we're going to be to this 553 number. And then, you know, depending on costs and, you know, ease of operations and what needs to be there, it kind of starts creeping up as we put more and more on the site.
Gotcha, that makes sense. Thanks.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. So next steps, you've already given us the feedback. We're going to take a look at, you know, what can we fit on the existing town-owned property. We can continue to, if you're all right with it, you know, we have in our scope to do an environmental file review, certainly of the existing DPW property. Since we're doing that, it's not much more to encompass the adjacent Crichton property. And that's, you know, that's just a search to available public records. So my sense is we continue moving forward with that task. We could also, if folks are okay with it, move forward with hazardous materials assessment of the existing DPW buildings. That's looking for asbestos and lead paint. Things of that nature can help with the accuracy of our demolition cost estimates. But I think we would hold off on doing the geotechnical drilling until we get to sort of a preferred alternative, a site layout that we're comfortable with, and then we move forward with the geotech.
I think that makes sense.
Sure.
Yep.
You know, and then once we kind of get to that point, we'll be finalizing cost estimates, finalizing the study, and then moving into public presentations to get you to the next level.
Okay.
That's everything.
Okay. Any other questions for Jamie, for Joe?
Were there some invoices, Joe, that you wanted?
There
taken
certainly
care of?
were.
I
Yes,
did.
there were.
So I have to apologize. I sent all the invoices to date. I couldn't find my notebook, which ones we approved the last time. So if the committee wants to review them and approve what you choose to approve, if any of the invoices have been previously approved and paid, I will obviously not pay them. I'll look them up in the payroll the accounts payable software and not be sending.
Unfortunately, I think you need to clean that up first, and then we can go through them and just approve what needs to be approved.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna be meeting in 2 weeks, Joe.
Okay, perfect.
I mean, no, 3 weeks, the 28th.
The 28th.
We're gonna be meeting the 28th. let's find out which ones need to be approved, which ones don't need to be approved. And we can do it then. Is that all right?
It's fine with me.
Okay.
And then at that time, Joe, maybe we can, maybe you can reach out to Steve and have a little bit more serious conversation on whether Kitron's a real option or not.
Yeah, I'll default to Jamie on this one too, but I would think that we could probably work out the existing site plus maybe look into 108 a little bit. I can have my group figure out, you know, what being, and I think we're in zone B, what that's going to actually mean for seeing if we could maybe put an administrative building on the other piece of property that we actually in fact own.
The one right across the street.
No.
Is there anything on Chris? Is there enough land on Crystal where you park the water trucks now to do anything? We had looked at a water department building there at one point way back with Rick. I don't know if you were even part of that.
No, that was actually before my tenure, but we did. The only question I have, and it's not my area of expertise, but we got, you know, a heck of a lot of pushback for trying to do a pickleball court next to Lake Quannapowitt. So I can imagine trying to put a building and some of the things we do next to a public water supply will be even stricter.
Yeah, I mean, we did have an approval for that at one point.
Right, and maybe that
It just was
sense.
a bad number.
Right. You know,
Yeah.
we could certainly vet that out, and then that'll be, you know,
Or maybe that becomes employee parking, right?
This
It's
whole
directly across the
process-
street.
right. This whole process has been a lot of, you know, what ifs and pairing backwards. It's
Yeah.
just the next step in the conversation. So,
Yeah.
I'll leave that up to you, Jamie. I don't want to, you know, put the stopwatch on you, but I think we could probably come up with something that could be presentable by that point in time.
Sure, yep, I'm sure we can make that work. Yep.
Yep, or Joe, I don't know who's wiser in the world of Wakefield, but have you guys ever seen an eminent domain happen in Wakefield for a building project?
No, we
that'd
took, the last one we did was we took the park at the head of the lake. For the park, we took a restaurant.
Well, where the restaurant used to be.
It's the only eminent domain
Yep.
in the 20 years that I'm aware of.
And typically, Phil, if we did anything, it's usually a conversation that benefits both parties. It's an agreement that we can come up with. It's more for like conduit and things like that.
Right, yeah,
I don't think anything to this scale. There'll be a lot of them with the Envision project, but they're all utility based.
I'd say if eminent domain's on the table, you probably can open up a whole bunch of other places to look at, but it's all unpopular, but it's, you know.
No, I mean, if this exercise to this point did anything, it certainly made the potential missed opportunity at the other site off of Bay State Road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only seemed like that was the way to go. Unfortunately, the
Yeah,
yeses that happened in
unfortunately.
reality were pretty high up the chain.
Yeah, unfortunately, that would have been the way. All right, anybody else? Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Joe. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I move
How
that
about
we
a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn, second?
Oh, hey, hold on.
What?
Can I ask a question? Hold on. It's not late enough. I got ask another question.
Red Sox are on.
Are they losing still?
Yeah,
What's
they
going
are.
on with,
Yeah,
what's
they're
going on with
losing
the
2-0.
Greenwood roof?
The
Has that
final,
been closed out? And do we have a roof
Thank you,
inspection
folks.
scheduled before winter?
I'll find out.
I thought it
Yeah.
got closed out.
I thought it's closed out and they're just waiting for the
And we had the roof
MSBA to pay
inspection.
us.
That's what I
I
mean.
think
Like,
we'll
what's
double check that, Phil, but I think there wasn't another infrared done, but there was a roof inspection done.
right after they did the warranty repairs, they looked at it, and then I'd say before winter coming. Joe already banged off, I think, but which is fine. Or if he's on, it'd be great to get someone up there and take a look at those weak areas by that, you know, where they did all the repairs to see if those
Yeah.
seams picking up again. We've
Well,
had
you'd
some
like to
crazy
think that the
storms.
facilities guy at the school has been up there.
I hope so. I've had some crazy roof damage in the last couple months at my building, so it's worth
Oh.
asking, especially due to the warranty issues they had.
Yeah, rain and wind.
Yep.
So,
Joe, did you, Joe Conway, did you get that?
Yes.
Oh,
I did.
there's
I was
Joe.
gonna say,
All right.
I can have them up there. They were just up there not too long ago taking care of that flashing that you were talking about. So I'll
Oh, okay.
if they don't have a condition, I'll have them head up there and I'll give you a summary of, you know, what they're seeing or not seeing related to
Great.
teams and whatnot.
Good. And as
Thank
far
you.
as the rest of the project, it's all done, but the MSB has to have the final say of it and then give us our money.
Right.
Right.
All right, anybody else? How about Phil's, Chip's motion to adjourn?
I second.
And all in favor, just click leave.